I'm Dustin Cormier, and this is the How to Rock Astrology audio series. The information in this recording is copyrighted by Dustin Cormier, 2015, all rights reserved, except where noted in the recording. The following information on ascendant or rising signs comes from Stephen Arroyo's Chart Interpretation Handbook, copyrighted in 1989 by Stephen Arroyo, published by CRCS Publications in Sebastopol, California. I do not own the following content. Guidelines to interpreting the ascendant. Although the ascendant is of deep and pervasive importance for each individual, there is no denying that it must be related to the rest of the chart, and especially to the sun sign, in order to understand it thoroughly for a particular person. The sun, after all, is the core identity, the very center of the consciousness, the way we assimilate much of our experience, whereas the ascendant, although it varies in importance from person to person, is not as central to the person's nature. It shows, among other things, the approach to life, but the sun shows life itself. The ascendant must serve the purposes, values, and creative goals of the sun for the individual to function happily and fully. A useful tool for understanding how a person's ascendant and sun sign interact is to compare the elements of the two factors. For example, a Cancer sun sign person with a fire sign rising is usually far more extroverted, forcefully expressive, and confident than a Cancer sun individual with, say, a more conservative, self-protective earth sign rising. For another example, an air sign sun person with a water sign rising may appear much more emotional than he or she really is, whereas a water sign sun person with an air sign rising may appear far more detached and less emotional than he or she really is. It should be pointed out that people are often relatively unaware of their ascendant nature as compared to their sun sign. In that sense, the ascendant is a factor that can be consciously developed further over time and consciously utilized to aid one's self-expression. I've known people who are relieved to find what their rising signs were, since it finally gave them a way of identifying a very deep but only semi-conscious tendency in themselves. In some cases, the qualities and abilities symbolized by the ascendant were just beginning to emerge, and learning the astrological keys to this factor helped personal development greatly. I should emphasize here that perhaps more than with most other factors in the chart, the early environment can encourage or suppress the expression of the ascendant's energies, since it is a primary channel with which one interacts with the outer world. The reader should view the following comparative evaluations as guidelines and as questions to explore, rather than as rigid statements of absolute truth. Scorpio Modality or Quadruplicity. The Scorpio Modality is fixed, the determined energy mode. There are exactly 4 of these willful, determined signs in the zodiac belonging to the fixed modality. These include Leo, Scorpio, Aquarius, and Taurus, and they all share similar characteristics. These 4 signs are better able to focus and concentrate than the other 8 signs. They share a deliberateness and a powerful ability to focus and endure, but they also share the challenge of avoiding stubbornness and close-minded rigidity. The element of the ascendant. The element of the ascendant reveals the quality of energy flow directly vitalizing the physical body and the overall approach to life. Fire or air signs rising tend to conduct energy, encouraging active self-expression and dynamic expenditure of energy. Earth or water rising signs tend to conserve and resist the flow of vital energies, and hence indicate self-containment, sometimes self-repression, and the tendency of living within oneself. Water signs rising, Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces. Most easily influenced by the environment and by other people. Sensitive, moody, wary because of a strong feeling of vulnerability and likelihood of being hurt. Protective of self, but also of others one cares about. Sympathetic, feels others' emotions immediately and forcefully. Very private, lives deeply within oneself. Scorpio Ascendant or Scorpio Rising. Always known for intensity, those with Scorpio rising are very often associated with the healing arts, exploring other people's motives such as through psychotherapy, or exploring the unknown or esoteric. Although Scorpio is often described as courageous, what is not usually mentioned is how much fear is the element motivating their actions. For Scorpio, the best defense is a good offense. Those with Scorpio rising are constantly on the defensive to a degree not usually seen in Scorpio's sun. Scorpio is a sign of emotional extremism, and it is therefore easy to find a powerful negative expression of Scorpio Ascendant for every positive expression. Scorpio rising has in fact gained a rather negative reputation over the years, one which is not entirely undeserved. No other rising sign can rival it for vindictive, ruthless, jealous behavior. Vengeance is often a strong motivating factor in their behavior, as is a sometimes paranoid obsession with self-preservation. The following information comes from Isabel Hickey's classic text, Astrology, A Cosmic Science, copyrighted in 1992 by Isabel M. Hickey Trust, published by CRCS Publications in Sebastopol, California.
I do not own the following content.
Scorpio on the Ascendant, the hardest ascendant of all. Battlefield where the soul and personality must come to mortal combat. They must come into alignment and the personality must die. The battle concerns the threefold personality. Physical, emotional, and mental levels are involved. Strongest ascendant of all. Great depth. Devil or angel, no in between. Willful, self-reliant, and courageous. Reserved. Hard to understand. Self-controlled and stoical. Appear calm on the surface, but extremely emotional inwardly. The silent type. Great determination and strength enough to overcome any adversary. Needs to overcome resentment and jealousy. No unevolved soul is born with the Scorpio Ascendant. The razor-edged path that can only be tread where there is strength and power enough to do so. Note the position of Mars outwardly in the world and Pluto in the underworld, for they will show what work is to be done by the personality in this life. The following information comes from The Secrets of Your Rising Sign by William Lamb with Webb Harris, Jr., copyrighted by William Lamb in 2004, first published in the USA by Fair Winds Press in Gloucester, Massachusetts. I do not own the following content. Suspicious and intense, with an intimidating depth in the eyes, mysterious Scorpio's aversion to feeling vulnerable can be traced to childhood. People with Scorpio rising were wary of strangers and not often eager to say much. Scorpio women, especially, find it very difficult to disclose themselves to others, even to their closest friends. These people are amazingly insightful. I see what you're doing, they say to themselves. They have a red meat approach to life, are full of gusto, and given to energetic activity. Their grab the handle, we're out of here, do it now, think about it later attitude sometimes creates an overachiever. There's often a mechanically skillful and/or artistically inclined quality to Scorpio rising, even from the earliest years. Physical type: deep eyes, sometimes a noticeable muscularity. In women, shapely and voluptuous, or a tendency toward problems with weight. Favored colors: maroon, dark red, black. The following information comes from Isabel Hickey's Astrology, A Cosmic Science, copyrighted in 1992 by Isabel M. Hickey Trust, published by CRCS Publications in Sebastopol, California. The significance of the Sun and the Sun sign in astrology. The symbol of the Sun in astrology is a circle with a dot in the middle. This is a very deep occult spiritual symbolism. The circle represents the eternal self that did not start here and does not finish here on earth. The dot in the middle represents the divine spark at the center of every living cell, the light which lighteth every man which cometh into the world. It is the point of light at the center of every living cell. In the blueprint, the sun represents the main expression of the individual, the heart and core of beingness. The sun has a different effect on individuals born at different times of the year. According to the sign and house in which the sun is placed, we are able to judge the general vitality and physique, the qualities of leadership, and the individual's ability to succeed in life. In a personal chart, the sun represents the basic drive for significance, the will, male relationships, and female charts, especially with the father.
vital energy coming from the etheric levels and prana, fuel on which the total personality operates, urge for power, constitutional strength, and finally, a powerful sun means very great power to do and to be. Keywords of the sun: will, individuality, spirit. The sun is the significator of the spirit in man, the beingness or isness of life. It rules the basic drive for significance, the will to be. Physically, the sun is the sustainer of life, giver of light, heat, and energy. More than anything else in the chart, it shows the will, man's highest expression. Its aspects show deep character traits, the chief ambitions. It needs aspects to the planets for strength of expression in the horoscope. As the sun moves through the signs, its return to the sign of its exaltation, Aries, the eastern horizon, marks the beginning of the astrological year. Springtime brings the release of a new cycle of life. As the sun moves through the houses, its return to the eastern horizon is the beginning of the astrological day, sunrise. The sun sign in its element. The following information comes from Stephen Arroyo's Chart Interpretation Handbook, copyrighted in 1989 by Stephen Arroyo, published by CRCS Publications in Sebastopol, California. I do not own the following content. The sun sign's element is usually dominant in considering the overall psychology of a person. This is so because the sun sign's element reveals the attunement of one's basic vitality, identity, and power of self-projection, as well as the fundamental quality of his or her consciousness. The element of one's sun sign reveals the basic inner force motivating everything we do. The element of the sun sign also gives insight into how any individual sees life itself and what expectations they have of the life experience. Sagittarius Sun. Sagittarius is a fire sign. These are the common characteristics of people born with the sun in fire signs. Basically motivated by inspirations and aspirations. Recharges energy through vigorous, physically demanding activity and by pursuing new visions for the future. Interpretive guidelines for the sun in Pisces. Creative energy is expressed sensitively and inspirationally. Needs to be recognized for compassionate, giving nature. Sense of individuality is not clearly focused due to empathy with lives and problems of others. Radiates a healing and compassionate spirit toward all that suffers. Vitality and self-expression are colored by soul yearnings, overwhelming vulnerability, and the state of the inner life. This final article comes from The Secrets of Your Rising Sign by William Lamb with Webb Harris, Jr., copyrighted by William Lamb in 2004, first published in the USA by Fair Winds Press in Gloucester, Massachusetts. I do not own the following content. Pisces born mid-evening. Pisces with Scorpio rising. It's anybody's guess where these people are coming from. All you can do is look for warmth in their eyes and watch their behavior. There's apt to be lots of behavior to watch. Scorpios full of gusto is alive and well here, so these Pisceans are tremendously active and big contributors to boot. Scorpio's intensity creates a lot of desire in this person, and they tackle their chores with carnivorous purpose. They're simply do it now and think about it later. They know exactly what they came for, and they fully intend to go home with it. But getting them to actually state their case might be impossible. Putting their cards on the table just doesn't come naturally to these people. Both Pisces and Scorpio have a deep aversion to feeling vulnerable, so they hide themselves. Pisces hides to avoid confrontation, and Scorpio hides to control and manipulate. So Pisceans with Scorpio rising are apt to be very difficult to find sometimes. As adults, they usually outgrow the shyness that characterizes their childhood, but they still need their peaceful solitude. Still, there's a lot of sexy Scorpio at hand, and alluring Pisces is always fascinating. So although they rarely welcome it, they're never short on attention from others. The handiness of Scorpio and the vivid imagination of Pisces gives these people a lot of artistry, however they choose to express it.
But whatever their own occupation, they prefer to be left alone to fulfill their desires at their own vigorous pace, focused and undistracted. They don't like to be interrupted by micromanaging bosses or by colleagues who want to take a break and chat about their plans for the weekend. With good character, they work hard for their money and invest their resources wisely. But with poor character, there might be some shifty behavior because they soon discover that they're masterful at covering their tracks, and they believe, usually with solid evidence, that they'll get away with it. This is a dangerous path for anyone to travel, not just Pisceans, because not only is it just plain wrong, it's earthly foolish. It never shows a profit over the long haul. Eventually, it will be time to pay the piper. So Pisceans with mysterious Scorpio rising are well advised to be a little more outgoing, a little more visible, and on the up and up. There's always a healthy dose of Florence Nightingale in the Pisces ego, so helping people and caring for living things brings them a peace and a fulfillment that's fully satisfying. They're most beloved when they're gentle and willing and courageous enough to keep from disappearing when people have come to trust and depend on them. Emphasizing their positive traits is their ticket to happiness.